You think you're free, you think you make your own decisions, but what if I told you that someone somewhere is already ruling your world, and they're doing it without you even noticing? In this video, we'll expose why everyone wants to rule, but only a few ever do, and how Machiavelli's brutal truths can help you avoid becoming another pawn. Let us begin with a truth most are too afraid to say aloud. You want power, and no matter how much you try to dress it up in kindness, in virtue, in false humility, you crave control. Over your time, over your environment, over people's opinions of you. The need to dominate isn't exclusive to tyrants or politicians. It lives inside the housewife who wants obedience from her children. It whispers to the teenager who wants more followers. It lives in the manager who hates being questioned, the employee who schemes behind their colleague's back, and yes, it even lives in the preacher who demands loyalty in the name of God. Everyone wants to rule their world, but most lie about it. You were not born neutral. You were born with instincts carved by centuries of survival, conquest, betrayal. Your ancestors didn't survive because they were fair. They survived because they outsmarted, overpowered, and outmaneuvered those who wanted the same things. The modern world disguises this power struggle under civility, manners, and corporate policy. But the war is still on. Now it happens in conference rooms, on dating apps, in family gatherings, in viral videos. Power is no longer just swords and blood. Today, it's algorithms, influence, silence, and timing. But make no mistake, the desire is the same. And yet, when people hear the word power, they recoil as if it's dirty, as if they're better than that. They say, I just want peace, or I don't care about controlling others. No, you don't want peace. You want control of the chaos. You don't want freedom for everyone. You want freedom for yourself. You see, the need for power is not just political. It is psychological. It is woven into your daily decisions. Why do you speak in a certain way in front of some people and not others? Why do you try to win arguments? Why do you feel insulted when you're ignored? Because you don't just want to exist. You want influence. You want your voice to be heard, your opinions to matter. You want others to orbit around your world, not the other way around. Even kindness can be a strategy for power. A man may give generously not because he's pure, but because he knows it buys loyalty. A woman may appear humble because it attracts less suspicion. Goodness is often just a costume worn by those who want power, but know they must appear soft to receive it. In truth, the most dangerous people are not the ones who scream for power. They're the ones who whisper they don't want it at all. The desire to rule is buried in social dynamics. Look closely. Watch two friends in conversation. One is always leading, the other follows. In every group, there's always one who commands the attention, and one who laughs too hard at jokes they don't find funny. The game is always happening. Most people don't even know they're playing. It begins early. Even as children, we fight for attention, for dominance on the playground, for status in the classroom. The games change, but the drive stays. As adults, we shift to power over schedules, relationships, finances, narratives. The modern battlefield is perception. He who controls the perception controls the world. But here's the irony. Because the desire for power is universal, very few ever admit it. They hide it, they judge it, and in doing so, they weaken their position. They allow others, more aware, more strategic, to dominate them silently. Understand this, power is not evil. What is evil is the blindness to it. The refusal to see how you yourself are involved in the dance. The refusal to recognize how your relationships are shaped by subtle power moves. Who texts first? Who waits? Who gives more than they receive? Who apologizes even when they're not wrong? All of it is a play for positioning, not always conscious, but always real. The weak tell themselves they are above power games, but it is not that they're above the game. It is that they are losing it. You, the listener, have probably already begun to realize this. You've seen it in your workplace, in your family, in your so-called friendships. The manipulation, the one-sided respect, the way people demand emotional labor without giving anything in return. And you've probably asked yourself, Why does this person always seem to get what they want? Why do people listen to them, follow them, respect them, even when they don't deserve it? The answer is simple. They understand the universal nature of power. You are still pretending it doesn't exist. You're still fighting a chess game by the rules of checkers. You think you're choosing kindness when really, you're choosing weakness. Not because kindness is weak, but because you're using it as an escape from confrontation. From clarity, from power, and the world doesn't reward weakness. It may clap for it. It may pretend to admire it. But in the end, it elevates the strong, the persuasive, the calculating. The ones who are willing to step into the uncomfortable truths most people are afraid to even name. This is the great Machiavellian irony. The people who say they don't want power often crave it the most. They just don't know how to get it, or worse, they think they'll get it by being liked, by being nice, by waiting their turn. There is no turn, and if there was, someone else just cut in line. They told you to be good, to be honest, to be fair. They said morality is the compass that guides great men to greatness. But what they didn't tell you is this: morality is often a cage, not a crown. The illusion of being good has sedated more minds than war ever could. It has turned lions into lambs and strategists into servants. You were trained from childhood to think that being kind will make you strong. That if you follow the rules, life will reward you, that good things come to good people, and when they don't, when you are passed over, betrayed, left behind, you're told to try harder, be even better, be even nicer. But you never ask yourself the question that truly matters. Who wrote these rules, and why do they never seem to apply to the ones in power? Look at history. Look at politics. Look at your workplace. When was the last time you saw someone rise to dominance purely by virtue of honesty and fairness? And don't confuse image with reality. Many who appear moral are simply masters of appearing moral. That is a different skill altogether. The world doesn't elevate the good. It elevates the useful, the clever, and the unapologetically strategic. Here lies the great trap. Morality, when used blindly, becomes a tool of control. Not control over others, but control over you. The more you cling to your righteousness, the more predictable you become, and the more predictable you are, the easier it is to outmaneuver you. You refuse to lie, so your enemy knows you'll always tell the truth. You refuse to manipulate, so they know you'll always play fair. You refuse to betray, so they know you'll never see their betrayal coming. You are an open book in a room full of locked safes. People will say, "But if I act immorally, I'll lose myself." But let me ask you, have you even found yourself yet? Or have you merely adopted a personality that was approved by those who wanted you obedient, harmless, agreeable? The illusion of morality doesn't just block power, it filters who you become. You censor your ambition. You dilute your instincts. You feel guilt for simply wanting more, for speaking too loudly, for demanding respect. Morality teaches you to shrink, to become small enough to fit inside the expectations of others. But power, true power, requires growth. It requires flexibility. It requires you to see morality as a tool, not a prison. The wise ruler does not discard morality. He uses it. He understands when to wear the mask of virtue and when to remove it in the shadows. Consider the rulers you admire, the icons, the legends. You know what they did. You know what they sacrificed, but you forgive it because they won, because they built empires, moved nations, transformed history. And once a person wins, the world finds ways to reinterpret their sins as strategy. Their cruelty becomes necessary. Their lies become genius. And yet, you, who follows every rule, remain unnoticed, undervalued, unseen. You pride yourself on being good, but ask yourself, has this goodness brought you power, or has it made you easy to control? Let us speak plainly. Morality has a place. It maintains order. It soothes the masses. It keeps chaos from spilling into the streets, but it is not the engine of power. It is the leash. The more loudly someone demands morality from you, the more likely it is they are trying to disarm you. You see it in politics. The ones screaming about virtue are often hiding rot behind their smiles. You see it in relationships. The partner who demands loyalty often gives none. You see it in business. The company that advertises ethics is often built on exploitation. Morality is not the game. It's the commercial they show during halftime while the real game happens behind the scenes. The true Machiavellian doesn't abandon ethics. He wields them. He knows when to be soft, when to appear noble, when to offer forgiveness, not because he believes in it, but because it serves his ends. He understands that morality is language, and power comes to those fluent in every dialect, not just the holy one. And so, while you stand on principle, others move pieces. While you hesitate, others strike. While you wait for the right thing to do, others reshape the board entirely. The illusion of morality is that it makes you safe. But safety is not sovereignty. You do not rule by being safe. You rule by being unreadable, by understanding that sometimes the highest morality is protecting your own agency, your freedom to choose, adapt, act. When the world teaches you to feel guilt for being strategic, ask yourself, who benefits from your guilt? When they tell you to take the high road, ask, what are they doing while I walk alone? When they praise you for being good, ask, why am I praised but never empowered? Morality without power is decoration, but power with strategic morality, that is transformation. The world is not a playground, it is a chessboard, and while you are busy asking for fairness, the ruthless are already 5 moves ahead. They don't wait for justice, they don't cry for approval, they understand something that most never learn. This game is not won by the pure, but by the prepared, not by the kind, but by the calculating. People often imagine that ruthlessness means cruelty, barbarism, violence, but that's a child's understanding of power. Real ruthlessness is colder, quieter. It's the strength to do what others won't. It's the ability to say no, to cut ties, to manipulate, to sacrifice comfort, people, even parts of yourself for a greater position on the board. The ruthless don't hope the world will give them what they want. They take it. Not by force, but by insight. They study people the way a hunter studies prey, not to destroy, but to dominate without being seen. They know when to flatter, when to threaten, when to walk away, when to attack. They're not playing checkers, they're playing God, and you're still waiting for permission. You see, those who win in this world do not ask if the game is fair. They ask, what are the rules? And how can I bend them without breaking? They don't waste time complaining about the system. They become the system because they understand a brutal truth. Power is never handed to the deserving. It is seized by the disciplined. Look around you. Look at the people who rise. They're not always the smartest, not the most talented. Often, they are simply the most relentless. The ones willing to do what others find uncomfortable. The ones who study the emotional weaknesses of their opponents, not out of malice, but necessity. The ones who understand that every smile hides a strategy, every favor comes with a price, every silence is calculated. You, on the other hand, you still believe you can win by being liked, by being agreeable. You think staying quiet will make people respect you. You think sacrificing your needs will earn their loyalty. But the ruthless already know something you don't. Loyalty is negotiable. Respect is rarely given. It is demanded. Influence does not go to the good. It goes to the gutsy, and the truly ruthless, they don't show their power until it's too late for you to react. They appear calm, passive, almost harmless, and then, when you least expect it, they strike. Not loudly, not theatrically, but effectively, precisely, quietly. They understand leverage, timing, patience. They understand that manipulation is not always deception. It's influence sharpened to a weapon. They understand that to control others, you must control yourself first. Your emotions, your impulses, your need to be understood, forgiven, validated. You're too easy to read, too quick to speak, too hungry to be accepted. And so you are predictable, and the predictable are never powerful. They are played. The ruthless also know the cost. Power is not free. It demands sacrifice. If you want everyone to like you, you will never lead them. If you need constant affirmation, you'll be a slave to it. If you cannot walk away from the table when it's no longer serving you, then you were never at the table to begin with. You were on the menu. You may be thinking, but I don't want to hurt people. Good, you shouldn't. The ruthless do not go around hurting people for fun. That's weakness pretending to be strength. The ruthless hurt only when necessary. When principle must be enforced, when betrayal must be punished, when silence must be shattered, there is an art to it, a rhythm, a science. It's not emotion, it's calculation. Ruthlessness in its highest form is not cruelty. It is clarity, a kind of vision that pierces through the fog of sentiment and focuses only on results. That kind of clarity is terrifying to those who hide behind excuses, delays, and fears. The ruthless have no need for revenge. Revenge is for the emotional. They deal in outcomes. They focus on removing threats, not crying over them. They are not driven by rage. They are driven by advantage. They win because they are not distracted by appearances, by apologies, by illusions. You keep telling yourself you're a good person, and maybe you are, but good people can be blind, and the blind are led, not by saints, but by strategists, not by heroes, but by hunters. There's a reason the ruthless rule. Not because they're heartless, but because they see the full board. They don't waste energy where there is no return. They don't explain themselves. They don't play fair in a world that never was. They just win. Again and again, not because they're lucky, but because they understood long ago that power doesn't come from playing the game with honor. It comes from knowing the game better than anyone else. What you see is rarely what holds the power. The president gives speeches, the king wears a crown, the CEO signs contracts, but none of these things prove true control. They are symbols, stage props in a grand illusion where the real rulers sit offstage, silent, watching. The world you live in, the choices you think are yours, the freedoms you're told you have, they are all shaped by those you will never meet. This is not conspiracy. This is reality. The greatest power is always invisible. Because once power is seen, it becomes vulnerable. It becomes a target. So those who truly understand power never place themselves in the spotlight. They place their puppets there instead. They shape perception, not by force, but by suggestion. They never tell you what to think. They simply create the environment where certain thoughts feel natural, inevitable, yours, and you follow. In every nation, in every system, there are visible leaders. They speak on camera, they argue in parliament, they tweet to the world. But behind them, there are men and women whose names never make headlines: advisors, funders, strategists, the architects of policy. The engineers of public opinion. They don't command, they design, they don't fight, they program. You think you are immune. You think because you read, because you're educated, because you're skeptical, that you can see through it. That's the brilliance of their method. The illusion is so complete. You think your skepticism is rebellion, but it's just another layer of control. You didn't discover the truth. You were handed a second illusion and told it was freedom. The invisible rulers don't use fear the way you imagine. They don't send soldiers to your door. They don't need to. They use subtler weapons, algorithms, narratives, trends. They influence who you admire, what you chase, what you believe is possible. They influence who gets attention and who is erased. You live inside a matrix of influence that rewards obedience, not to law, but to expectation, social expectation, cultural expectation, emotional expectation. And here's the most dangerous part. The system teaches you to love it. It teaches you to laugh at those who question it. It teaches you to mock the idea that you're being controlled. It teaches you that your slavery is called safety, that your silence is called respect, that your compliance is called maturity. So you defend the very system that limits you. You become its most loyal protector, not because you're forced to, but because you believe it's right. The invisible rulers win because they don't need credit. They don't need applause. They don't need titles. They don't care if you know their names. What they want is effect, and they've mastered the art of shaping reality through whispers, not shouts. A well-placed article, a trending sound, a changed algorithm, a single cancellation, and suddenly the direction of a conversation shifts without a single law being passed. That is power. You're chasing likes. They're writing the code that decides what gets liked. You're arguing on platforms. They're owning the platforms. You think you're fighting the system while standing on its stage, using its microphone and obeying its rules. But those who truly rebel don't protest loudly. They detach, they observe, they study, and when they move silently. Understand this, the visible rulers keep the masses occupied. They're the face of power, but not its hand. The real decisions are made far away from the cameras, in private meetings, in legacy families, in intelligence agencies, in corporate boardrooms where billions shift with a single handshake. These rooms are not filled with idealists. They are filled with realists, with people who understand that history is not shaped by votes or emotions. It is shaped by access, leverage, secrecy. Even in your personal life, the same rule applies. The loudest people often have the least influence. The friend who brags, the boss who micromanages, the partner who demands. All of them reveal their desperation for control. But the ones who influence you the most are usually the quietest. The ones who understand timing, silence, pressure. They plant an idea, they disappear, and the next day you think the idea is yours. The invisible do not beg for authority. They don't announce their presence. They let others wear the badge, bear the burden, take the fall. And when the winds change, they replace the faces without ever being seen. The same hand switching masks over and over, and the world applauds, thinking the game has changed. But the board has never changed, only the pieces. The greatest mistake you can make is to assume power looks like power. It doesn't. Power that is seen can be destroyed. True power is the force behind the curtain, behind the brand, behind the belief itself. It shapes the reality you wake up in, and you thank it for the privilege. It shapes your fears and ambitions, and you call it freedom. It shapes your enemies and your heroes, and you never once ask who gave you the script. So now you see it. Power is not reserved for the elite. It's pursued by all in silence or spectacle. The mother, the boss, the preacher, the lover, the friend. Everyone in their own corner of the world wants to rule. And most of them will lie about it, not to you, to themselves. But now the illusion is broken. Morality, a tool, kindness, a strategy, ruthlessness, a requirement, and those who appear to rule. Often shadows placed carefully in front of mirrors, while the true rulers remain hidden, silent, untouchable, calculating. You have a choice: remain blind in a world that feeds on your blindness. Or learn the game, master the board, and begin to rule. Not with noise, not with virtue, but with vision. Because in the end, it's not just that everyone wants to rule the world. It's that those who understand the game already do.